Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live session. I'm Rita Choi, founder of Asia HRM, and I'm delighted to host this session with our speaker, Mr. Daniel Yun, Head of Finance, Admin, IT, and ESG for Swire Motors Hong Kong. Our topic today is mediation in human capital governance, how it adds value in resolving workplace disputes. Before we begin, I want to share a line that frames today's conversation beautifully. If you want enemies, excel your friends. But if you want friends, let your friends excel you. Workplace disputes often escalate not because of the issue itself, but because ego enters the room. When people feel the need to outshine, out-argue, or outperform each other, trust collapses and conflict becomes personal. Mediation works because it does the opposite. It creates space for each party to excel. It allows people to speak without fear, to feel heard without judgment, and to express their needs without being overshadowed. When people feel valued, they lower their defenses. When they feel safe, they stop competing for dominance and start searching for solutions. That's why mediation is such a powerful governance tool. It doesn't just settle disputes, it creates fair and sustainable resolutions, preserves trust and psychological safety, and turns conflicts into organizational learning. Wow, I'm sure that our speaker will share a lot on that. As we begin, I invite all of us, including myself, to gently hold this question. Are we trying to excel others, or are we creating space for others to excel? Because the moment we choose the second path, resolution becomes possible, relationships become repairable, and culture becomes stronger. Taking this opportunity, I would like to make a quick announcement on our People Governance Maturity Diagnostic. As we begin and continue our 22-week governance series on LinkedIn Live, many board members, CEOs, and HR leaders have asked for a practical way to assess the organization's governance maturity, particularly in the areas of leadership, people, culture, and organizational capability. To support this, we have developed a People Governance Maturity Diagnostic based on the governance principles we have explored throughout the series. It helps organizations assess their current level of maturity from basic to emerging, further to established, and even down to mature, across the key governance dimensions that drive sustainable organizational performance. The dimensions are talent decision governance, culture and conduct, leadership capability and judgment, workforce sustainability, people risk and accountability, future skills readiness, and crisis and transformational behavior. If you would like to have a complimentary copy, simply type yes in the comment box, and we'll be delighted to send it to you. With that, let me hand over to Daniel to take us through his insights and the deck he has prepared for today. And for those who have joined us, we would like to say a big welcome to all of you. And just feel free to say hi to us, and we'll say hello back to you. And don't remember to put your questions and comments on the comment box. Thank you so much. And Daniel, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rita, in introducing myself. It is my honor to conduct a talk on the topic of mediation in HCG, Human Capital Governance. You may ask, what is the expected outcomes of this, this talk or seminars? I would like to, to have some kind of insights on the following expected outcomes. Firstly, to resolve workplace conflicts through some skills of mediation. And the second is to enhance a workplace harmony through effective conflict resolution, promoting positive organizational culture. last but not the least is to understand how mediation adds values in resolving workplace disputes. Okay, hope you can all get these takeaways after the seminar today. I would like to introduce myself first. I come from accounting backgrounds. Besides those accounting qualifications and also the master's degrees, recently I become the accredited mediators in Hong Kong, namely Hong Kong Mediation Center panel member, accredited general mediator, IAPM, IME. IAPM is the International Accredited Professional Mediator. IME, it means the International Mediation Experts. Also, it is my honor to be the winner of the 2024 and 2025 HKCCMA Hong Kong Credit Collection Management Association Credit Management Excellence Award. So in fact, I'm a bit, not to say a very expert, okay, in the field of, commercial disputes as well as, credit collection, etc. Okay, today's topic will be as follows. I hope the time is enough. Firstly, I will talk about what is mediation and why mediation. Of course, why mediation matters to HGC, Human Capital Governance, and also the possible disputes under HGC. As mentioned, how mediation adds values to HR disputes resolution. Of course, real-life cases sharing will be, discussed with you too. Okay, let me start first to give you some, basic introduction of mediation. What is mediation? According to the Hong Kong Mediation Center mediation rules, mediation is a structured, confidential, voluntary, and private dispute resolution process, comprising of, at least, two parties. One party cannot have conflicts or disputes himself or herself, and also the mediator. The mediators playing the role of impartial individual without any adjudicating a dispute or aspect of it. Maybe you are aware of, in Hong Kong, the recently established IOMED, International Organization for Mediation Center. It is located at Wan Chai. Yeah. But is it just, the IOMED? Of course, no. Mediation, the principle, as I mentioned, is a voluntary, confidential, and structured process. I will explore the structured process later. And also the role of a mediator is to facilitate, not to, to give comment or to give, some instructions for which parties to do what or not to do what, okay? The purpose is to help parties to explore their underlying interests and also for parties to, to propose or express their options without imposing the decisions from the mediators. The benefits are many. It maintains relationship and also resolve disputes. It is a kind of effective conflict management. Okay, as I mentioned, it is a structured mediation process. It consists of, many different stages or process. For example, joint section, also separate section, and also, separate sections if needed in order to arrive a, agreed outcomes, etc. The purpose is a win-win outcome rather than, win-loss or loss-loss outcome. Okay. Someone may say that, I also use some mediation skills nowadays or, in my daily life, okay, or in your own companies. But I would like to tell you that there are different types of mediation skills or types of mediation. One is the facilitative and the other is evaluative. Evaluative, as I mentioned, it is the usual practice. For example, I may, try to solve some disputes between two parties, and then I will ask, okay, party A, you should do something, and party B, you should not do something. It is a kind of evaluative. The result is that, okay, the parties may not happy because for the other party may say that why I should not do this, why I should do that, etc. So the basic mechanism of the mediation is to facilitate. Okay, I'm not sure whether you can see detail from my PowerPoint slides. It helps parties evaluate proposals and also parties develop and exchange their proposals with the other parties. Help parties develop options and also it is the most important is to help parties to understand their own interests. Okay, how mediation can help. Okay, it is a very key concept under the facilitative mediation. In the mediation strategy, the mediator facilitates the parties to have mindset transformation. Mindset transformation is very important because primarily they are in hostile attitude, they have communication breakdown, they are even in competition mode, and also conflicts between both parties. Mindset management is a very important process because it can change, as I mentioned, is communication breakdown into mutual understanding, hostile attitude into open communication as well as open dialogue, and also turn conflicts into opportunities. Okay, let me introduce some basic techniques under mediation model. In the mediation, we have many stages and of course skill sets needed. Primarily, we have as a mediator, we need the parties to state their own statement, and then we will make some summarize. But of course, the skill set needed is we have to reframe some all the negative comments as well as all the negative wordings into a neutral wordings. Okay, and then the mediators will make summary as mentioned on the slide, and then the purpose on the right hand side is we have to get their common grounds. The common grounds is very important. As it will be illustrated in the three actual cases later on. And then after getting the common ground, we will have the agenda settings. Agenda settings means that we have to decide what topics we have to discuss, what is the priorities. Of course, the priority is not, does not indicate the most importance. And then we have the first joint section. Of course, first joint section is the chance for the parties to further understand in order to have direct communication and also to understand from the other parties. Afterwards, we will have the first separate sections. Why I say that first separate section? Because parties will always, as you can imagine, they propose something purely from their positional, backgrounds. For example, in my position, I want the other parties to do what and what, okay? And the other parties say, why I should do, what and what. They are, of course, not in a, cooperative role in the very beginning. And then the first separate session is try to understand their underlying needs, as well as, the reasons, rationale behind. Of course, later on, we will have the subsequent joint section, or if necessary, separate sections in the etc. Finally, we will have the agreement setting and closings, etc. In the agreement, we have to, ask the parties to sign in order to ensure execution, as well as, to for a kind of, enforcement in the future. Okay. I'm not sure whether some of you have seen that summarizing table. It is a very useful template. As I mentioned, during the mediation, on the left-hand side, as mediator, we will try to get some, common grounds from both parties. And then, as I mentioned, what the agendas are, what issues are to be discussed, we will write, of course, in front of the parties. And of course, to show transparency, we should, write them on a whiteboard, to be seen by both parties, etc. On the right-hand side, we will discuss the options. Yeah, the options are, proposed by the parties themselves. As I mentioned, at the end of the mediation, we have to sign a settlement agreement showing the specific action plan as well as the specific timing for the execution. So that in order to ensure all the parties, to follow as what they have agreed. Okay. You may ask, why mediation? The advantages of mediation are many. As you can see, just to name it, improve relationship, cost-effective, informal. But for this informal, it is as compared with litigation, as compared, going to the court, going to, to have some lawsuit, etc. Creative, creative. I will later explore more. Confidential, and also the parties determine their outcome. Rather than, as I mentioned, evaluative mediation is, I was told to do something by, by third party. Okay, let me further explain the advantages of mediation. As I mentioned, efficient and cost saving. It resolves disputes faster and less expensively. In the case if we have to solve some disputes or some conflicts via the court, you can see that the legal fee as well as the time, So as compared, going into litigation, mediation helps in terms of the time as well as the money. The second, preserve workplace relationship. Because as I mentioned, is mediation fosters mutual understanding and trust. The result is that staff engagement will be quickly enhanced, improving staff morale as well as positive workplace culture. Next, full mediation, it supports some psychological safety, inclusive leadership, etc. Also, as I mentioned, it reduces legal claims, especially DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion are very, recently popular topics nowadays. So when the cases or the disputes relating to some DE&I, it has to be, resolved, timely, and mediations helps a lot. Okay. The nature of mediation versus traditional approach. As I mentioned, we used to have, some kind of evaluative, mediation, like, okay, if I think that something is, not doing the right way, and then I will tell him or her to do so. It is not a kind of, facilitative mediation. Our facilitative mediation is a kind of, interest-based. The outcome is that the parties propose and create their own solutions. In terms of confidentiality, their proposals, their options are private. But of course, facilitative mediation have some limitations as well. It cannot be, or it is not suitable for the case of serious misconduct or in the case of balance in power imbalance, etc. Yeah, I will later talk about power imbalance later. Okay, expected outcomes. You can imagine Party A and Party B always argue, and then it used to be result in win-lose or even lose-lose situation. The case of lose-lose situation, you can imagine is that, okay, when someone, for example, when A is, under the evaluative mediation, okay, A is, was told to be, okay, you are the winner, for example, B is the loser. But in fact, A will think that, oh, why my so-called compensation is not what I expected. So Party A, even so-called is the winner, it is not, he or she will not happy, etc. So eventually it will be, a lose-lose situation. And in that case, B as a loser, why I have to, to compensate to B, etc., etc. Okay, I will going to revenge. So you can imagine that, okay, eventually, as time goes by, A and B will become lose-lose situation. Okay, under facilitative mediation, as I mentioned, the options, the action plans in the future are proposed by both parties A and B. So it's a kind of, okay, cooperative collaboration. Okay, as a result, it will be a maximization of both interests as a result of synergy. Okay, for the actual cases, I will, further show to you. Okay, as I mentioned, power imbalance does not, be fitted for a facilitative mediation because, in the case of a significant imbalance, it will make the communications difficult. For example, one is, top management, and the other is, the most junior, etc. Okay, the most junior staff will not, tell you the truth, their underlying, interests, etc., etc. So it, for that kind of mediation, it cannot be conducted successfully. Okay. The second case is that when the disputes or the conflicts involve criminal cases, mediation cannot be conducted because it involves criminal aspects. And the third one is, if we conduct a facilitative, mediation, but at the end, they do not sign anything, okay, that means no binding, arrangement, and then it impacts duly on the execution. So for such kind of cases, it will not be suitable for, facilitative mediation. Okay, up to now, you may ask, okay, is it mediation a very very useful way, and how, as a mediator or as a HR practitioner, how I can do mediations to my team? Okay, let me show you some key, skills or concepts. Okay. Mediation is a process to uncover invisible things, as I mentioned. On the top, you can see that they are visible. Visible, it means, okay, the issues happened, okay? The issues is as a result of arguments between two parties. For example, sales team, the sales manager, as well as, the sales executive. Okay, you can only see the visible, argument, okay? But for the underlying, the invisibles, you cannot see because they do not tell you. It includes, their self, esteem, their hidden, agenda, and also why they, result in such kind of conflicts because of their emotion, because of their personality, etc., or their own desire, etc. Okay, how mediations helps? Okay, for example, on the left-hand side, you can see that, okay, as we call it the conflict iceberg, it is a kind of, from positioning, argument into interest-based negotiation. On the top, as I mentioned, positions. For example, one party may ask, I want 100 of oranges, and then he or she argue with the other party, say that, for example, I do want 100 oranges by next week, okay, by next Monday. And the others say that, are you crazy? Why you need say so? I cannot provide to you, for example, and then without any, further communication. It creates a, communication breakdown or barrier, etc., and then go away. And then, of course, both parties, are not happy because for the original one, he or she cannot get the, his desire 100 oranges. Okay, and then it escalates to the, HR or the supervisor or the departmental managers. Okay, what are the interests behind? Okay, if for that mediators ask, okay, why, for example, you need such kind of, 100 of oranges, okay, and okay, the party A told the departmental manager, say, oh, because I need it in order to, to make a huge amount of oranges juice. Of course, it does not create any, creative, options, etc. It is the agenda. Okay, the reasons why, okay, the argue, it falls on the bottom, on the surface, okay? And of course, okay, if the mediators use some kind of facilitating skills, okay, and then to facilitate both parties, okay, the options or the value created from interest. Okay, I know it. I know the reasons why you need 100 oranges, okay, because you need to make oranges juice. Of course, we cannot, okay, get right on next Monday, okay, a huge amount of 100 oranges, but I can solve your purpose. I can solve the purposes from party B is that, okay, I can have, I can supply, okay, many of oranges peels in order for you to make the orange juice. So From such kind of simple example, you can see that, okay, the purpose, without saying the rationale behind, okay, both parties are arguing, okay, I cannot make it, etc., etc. But if as HR or as the departmental managers, you know or try to ask, open questions for both parties, you can finally solve, such kind of simple, conflicts or disputes. Okay. So on the right hand side is full out of open questions and also mediation skills. You can get, the underlying concerns, okay, as mentioned on the right hand side. On the bottom is their interests, because of those interests are not stated in the very beginnings. It includes, for example, assumptions, bias, their needs, or their own experience, etc. Okay, I will show later on the actual cases for 3 cases. Okay, the next will be why mediation matters to human capital governance. You may ask, why need mediation? The reason is that because conflicts always starts with individual difference, especially at workplace. You can see that, okay, even in a very small organization, if it is only one person, it will not be any conflicts at all. More than one person or a team, conflicts, okay, always appear. Workplace conflicts is a governance issue because it relates to trust and also staff misconduct, workplace stability, and, as I mentioned, execution capability. Mediation is a strategic tool to enhance employees' relationship, and of course, the most important is workplace culture and also organizational performance. As I mentioned, if not managed properly, it will result in reputational or legal exposure, especially, as I mentioned, the case relating to some DE&I, employee compensation case, because it may go to some government departments like Equal Opportunities Commission, labor departments, and other government departments. It will create legal risk to the organization. Human governance is how these human factors or human risks are directed, supported, and reviewed. As I mentioned, culture is very important, and it is not a soft issue besides governance. It is part of the operating environment for which governance succeed or fail, and at the end is how the organization can sustain or not. Okay. Why mediations matters to HGC? Okay, let me quickly introduce to you. Unmanaged conflicts affects, as you can imagine, absenteeism and also organizational reputation. The second, employees' relationship. Mediation resolves disputes on a timely manner, and of course, as a result, it will, add value to productive workforce. And also, it clarifies expectations between staff and management, and also to improve communication. It will result in better performance and feedback mechanism, which are very useful, especially in the PMS. It promotes a positive and collaborative workplace culture, etc. Okay. For HR practitioner, how mediation can help for HR, okay? Organization, in the case if embedded mediation into policies, it will create, a very positive conflict management, aspect and acting values. Of course, training training managers in mediation skills enables early conflict resolution, etc. And of course, as a professional mediator, I would recommend that, if possible, organizations should encourage staff to become accredited mediators or mediators coach by taking professional examinations. Just for information, in Hong Kong, accredited mediators is less than 2,500 only. So we are very, valuable. Yeah. In terms of governance, it sets a clear guidelines and matrix like resolution rates, so we can increase our employees' satisfaction in order to evaluate mediation effectiveness, etc. Okay. Mediation also can increase the HR capability. And also, as I mentioned, it strengthens resilience, especially in such, difficult business environment, etc. Okay. Okay. Let me share with you what are the possible disputes under HGC, Human Capital Governance. They are primarily classified into 5 categories, namely money, DE&I, performance, personality, and operational. Okay. For money, it is a kind of disagreement over, for example, pay rise and pay overtime. In such circumstances, staff may complain arising from the money. It goes under the money disputes. The second, when staff feel that they are of unfair treatment, etc., they will complain. But for this kind of discrimination, HR have to be careful because it relates to DE and I aspect. The third one is the performance. It relates to when the staff are treated or think of themselves of unfair performance reviews, etc. Okay. In terms of personality, it is as a result of poor and miscommunication, etc. Last but not the least, operational disputes. It relates to when one staff think that, I was being treated of unequal distribution of workload or resources. He or she may complain to the boss, which ultimately will involve HR to resolve the conflict. Possible disputes at workplace. There are many, as you can imagine. Conflicts between staff. The mediators will be the HR or their supervisor. Conflicts between teams. The mediators will be HR as well as departmental manager. When there are conflicts between departments, HR or the management team will be the mediator. Finally, to the top level, conflicts between board members. The mediator will be the chairperson. When it comes to external, for example, conflicts between employer and employee in the case of work injury compensation, employment contract, etc., because it involves labor tribunal, third-party accredited mediators are needed. Up to here, not sure you have any questions at this stage. If no, I can briefly, explore my PowerPoints.
Oh, sorry,
Yep.
Daniel, we do have a question here.
Yeah.
So maybe it's time to answer this question.
Sure.
What is one misconception about mediation that we wish every, let me take a look at
I cannot see the whole sentence.
You cannot see the whole sentence. Let me read it out to you.
Yeah, sure.
So what is one misconception about mediation that you wish every leader would stop believing? What is one misconception?
Yeah, it is a very good question. Thanks for it. In fact, the misconception is that it was my habit as well, my past practice as a department head. For example, my accounting team, someone think that why I should do such kind of work, and then the other do not need to do it, etc. In that case, of course, it was before my my training or in the field of mediation. I would say that you have to do ABC, and I will ask the other parties to do BCD, etc. But you can imagine is that for that for my accountant, after he or she received my instruction or my direction, of course at that moment she or he will upset. But I would say that, of course, in terms of in the actual business environment, staff cannot say or to work against their boss. Frankly speaking, I would say that it will be a kind of as I mentioned, evaluative as well as facilitative mediation if you have time. Why I say so? In the long term, Okay, after your instruction is that, okay, my accountant, you have to do, task ABC, etc. Maybe 2 weeks later, or, as time goes by, you may ask, okay, maybe, say 1 year or 2 years later, I can swap your task, to do, D, E, F, etc. with, the other parties, etc. Or, of course, before you say so, you can ask, or he or she, for the reasons why they do not want to, to accept the task ABC, etc. The reason is that it ultimately you may not, frankly speaking, you may not change the task, but at least you open, you have the open communication, and also ask, because as a mediator, okay, we the very important skill set is active listening. When you ask that accountant, you pay very active listening skills, and ask, and not to, of course, give comments, etc. And then to, the reasons is that I do not want to do task ABC, etc. and etc. But at least, you give, some kind of, open dialogue. You listen to their, concerns and needs. Okay, so I would say that misconception is that always we are, departmental manager, and we want to get things done, very effectively or very efficiently. We are assigned. Okay, it is not, not wrong. Yeah, primarily I also use this kind of approach. But if you have time later, I would say that you talk to your staff. Okay, the rationale behind he or she asks, and then try to get their, underlying concerns, as I mentioned. Okay, maybe I can later share, some actual cases later, so that you can imagine what are the differences, etc. Yeah.
Okay, very good. So I think it's more about the have a meaningful conversation with them, right?
Yeah.
Knowing what
It builds
the
trust.
why,
Yeah, and staff engagement.
the why behind the stuff. Okay, so in the interest of time, Daniel, I understand that you would like to share with us some cases, right? Would you mind if you share with one case?
Sure.
After
Yeah.
that, we would like to listen to your closing remarks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. They are some real life example. In fact, I have many, more than 3. I show you. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Case 1. It relates to, gender equality. Gender equality is, a very popular topics nowadays. You can see, from some news, etc. and etc. It relates to DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay, I tell you the case. A male sales director, name it Mr. Chen, consistently assigned big customers with high commission rates to male sales managers to follow, whereas assigning some difficult customers with less commission rates to female sales managers. And also, those female sales managers are excluded from, key strategic meetings. You can imagine, how come actual case will have such kind of, happening, etc. Of course, one sales manager, name it Miss Lee, complained and request equal opportunities. I'm not sure, in that actual case, whether the sales manager, dare to complain or, just to accept it. Yeah. Complain and request equal opportunities. The result is the sales director told her, go out, to stop paying the gender card. Of course, Miss Lee was angry, unhappy. Yeah. Ms. Lee is going to report to the Equal Opportunities Commission. When the HR understood that case, it was a kind of, urgency. As you can see that if, no appropriate actions was taken on time, the case will, of course, goes to the Equal Opportunities Commission. And then, you cannot imagine. And the possible result will be, it can be, reported on some news, and also, some social medias, medias, etc. Okay. I will not tell you the results later. I will share also the real life example. Yeah, another case too. First, the second one. It relates to communication, safety, as well as some kind of personality. A staff called Miss Wong. After vacation, looked at the safety hazards at the workplace. However, no other teammates reported to their supervisor or to the management with the hazards during her leave. Ms. Wong seriously complained to the management, saying that the teammates want her to die because she has to pass through the passage several times when she performed the daily operations. Ms. Wong is considered to report the case to the Labor Department. Of course, mediation urgently needed to address the issue by the HR manager. From this case, of course, it is a kind of communication, and also, most importantly, is the safety issue. Okay, the third case is another DE&I case called Susan, a top sales executive. She is a working mom with 2 kids, aged 7 and 4 years old. She has to leave the office by 5:30 on time in order to look after the kids. Her boss, David, the sales director, always asks her to join customers' dinners after work or drinks. Susan cannot perform such duties because of her caregiving role. Given such, David has recently issued 2 warning letters to Susan and mentioned to terminate Susan's contract if no improvements was looked at in the near future. Susan feels upset and complained to the CEO as well as the head of internal audit, because for this case it was a listed company, saying that the company does not respect working lady. She is considering to report the case to the Equal Opportunities Commission and as well as some media. From that case, you can see that if mediation or no timely intervention is needed, the impact to the company in terms of the reputational, legal, as well as you cannot imagine. For these cases, mediations take place. Okay, as I mentioned, okay, I would like to summarize for these 3 cases the common patterns. As you remember, I have showed to you that we have used a template called the common grounds, issues, as well as the options. For HR to be the mediator, he or she, will, to have a meeting with both parties. Okay, the rationale behind is that both, for the 3 cases, all the parties do not want to change jobs. Otherwise, for example, the staff will resign and then no more problems, because for that staff, it is not their, concerns at all. The second common ground is they do want a harmony working environment, especially, the working lady. She just want to, to have a balance between life as well as work. The third one is they feel trouble in the case and want to solve the disputes as soon as possible. Because especially for that, safety cases, she do want to solve the disputes as soon as possible because it is a kind of safety issues, etc. So the issues, as a mediator, we have to, to highlight those issues and try to solve the issues with the parties. The first one is how to improve the relationship with others, the staff as well as the supervisor, as I mentioned, the sales manager as well as the sales director. Also, the second is how to have a better working culture. Okay, for the case specific, for case 1, it relates to gender equality. Its specific issues, how to improve the workplace safety. For the second case is how to improve communication as well as workplace safety. And the third case is how to meet the individual staff caregiving needs as well as how to meet company's requirements. Okay, let's have the options. Of course, the options varies from case by case. If you have the fourth and the fifth one, you can just take these options as an example. For case one, the case one is, to recap you, is the gender equality. It relates to, the sales manager. He assign big customers with high commission rates to those male sales managers. For that case, after mediation take place, they come up with the following options. Starting from July this year onwards, all female sales managers can join the key strategic meetings. And also, starting from next year onwards, customers will be rotated and sales managers will take care, will not take care of a specific customers for more than 12 months. So it means a fair, much fair, as well as, more, not to focus on the male, gender, etc. They are the options after the, discussions between, the HR as well as, the sales director and the sales managers. For the second case, the options, they propose the following options. The second case is, to recap you, is the safety case. Starting from, next month, the company will do all the inspections to the workplace. And starting from August the 1st, inspections will take place on the first working day to ensure workplace safety. And also, Ms. Wong, the staff, will not report the case to the Labor Department. Because from this kind of, action plan or options, they both, fulfill their individual needs. Because Ms. Wong do want to have a much safe, environment, and then, reporting to the Labor Department is just a kind of tactic for her in order to achieve that kind of, target, etc. For the third case, it may be, creative, options from my point of view. As I mentioned, the working mom do want to have a balance between the, the life as well as the work. With effect from September, this year, work from home arrangement can be allowed for all working moms, say 1 week per week, so as, to have more time to look after their families. And then, of course, in return, Susan agrees to join the customer schedule in the evening, but of course, maximum to twice monthly. So for such kind of options, they are as a result of their discussions and also exchange of idea. As I mentioned, open dialogues was created, communication, from their primarily hostile relationship changed to, some cooperative, environment, etc. So for the above mentioned options, they are from their, they are as a result from their mouths, not from the, from the HR or acting as the mediators, of course. So in fact, both parties are happy. And the most important thing is that because of the action plans are from their, they are from proposed from by them, they are happy to have such. And then finally, because of they are happy, they decided, for such kind of enforcement in order to as a kind of confirmation or execution. So from this, it is a very good example because as you may not see that, especially for the third case, creative options or ideas come from their mouths more than, come from the, HR director or the CEO, etc. Yeah. Hope for these three cases, it helps to have some insights for the mediation.
Okay, thank you, Daniel, for walking us through these three cases and also share with the best options, right? At the end of the day, I hear the word happy. Okay, so happy is the outcome and also the feeling of the people concerned.
Because for those, action plans are coming from their mouths.
That is very good, very good.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And we already over time. So I just wanted to know if we have any questions from the viewers today. If no, then we would like to hear the closing remarks from Daniel. And Daniel, any closing remarks from you?
In fact, if closing remark, okay, maybe I can fastly talk about the key takeaways. The key takeaways, I would say that are two levels. And the most important thing is the last three one. For the mediation, okay, it has to be, to include the elements of confidentiality, and also to have, the elements of building or preserving relationship, trust, and whatnot. And of course, the ultimate outcomes is win-win, target outcome, not to have, one win and the other lose. And of course, ultimately, it will be lose-lose. And if have to say, one word, okay, for key takeaways, I would say that recently I have read a book, it will be trust, I would like to share why I do think trust is the key takeaways from seminars today, because trust is very important, and I would like to add from that readings is that trust is not built overnight. It is fostered through the accumulation of our daily actions. Especially HR have to, I know HR are doing, daily works to improve the, organizational culture and the trust between teammates, etc. The such truth is the cornerstone of human relationships. So what as I mentioned is that the options are, coming from their mouths. If they do not have any trust, or any, empowerment to say such kind of propose such kind of options, they will not, easily to have such kind of proposed options, as a result of the mediation. Trust is very important.
Thank you, Daniel, for the word trust. It's very, very important. So thank you, Daniel, again for such a thoughtful and very detailed session on to explain on why, how, and what mediation is about. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. We explored how mediation strengthens human capital governance by creating fair, owned, and sustainable resolutions, by preserving trust and psychological safety, and reducing risk and escalation, as well as enabling real organizational learning. But more importantly, we have seen how mediation changes the emotional climate of a dispute, right? Everybody was happy in the end. It moves people from competing to be right to collaborating to be understood. As we close, I would like to return to the reflection we held at the beginning. Are we trying to excel others, or are we creating space for others to excel? Mediation is a practice of choosing the second path, the path where we let others speak, let others be heard, and let others feel safe enough to express what truly matters. When organizations adopt this mindset, conflicts soften, relationships repair, and culture becomes stronger and more human. Daniel, thanks again for sharing your insights and experiences with us. And thank you to everyone to being part of this conversation. We look forward to seeing all of you again in our next week LinkedIn Live session. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks, Daniel, again. And if anyone would like to get if anyone would like to get the complimentary copy of the governance diagnostic, just say yes in the chat box, and we will send it to you. Thank you.